Welcome back, Astro listeners, to Star Lady Soul Reader Network. This is Media Monk, and I'm pleased to be joined with our shining star of the zodiac. It's Star Lady. Hello, Star Lady.
Hello, Media Monk.
Hello.
And we all know Star Lady manages the EAN website and the EA course. She studied the EA paradigm for, nearly 40 years now, and we do collectively have thousands of 1,000 students plus studying those EA course materials, listening to podcasts like these, participating in all of our forecasting webinars that we have done over the years. And, I guess you can go to the website and take a look at what might be for you, www.evolutionaryastrology.net. Take a peek at the Astro Library, but the real value is the EA course for astrologers looking to shift their practice into the next gear. All right, so new moon in Virgo, and with that introduction, I will turn it over to you, honey.
All right, thank you, Media Monk. Well, we are recording this the day before the new moon, which is going to be August 23rd at 0.5 degrees Virgo. I'm going to talk about that new moon, and I'm also going to talk about the inner planetary ingresses. However, I'm going to start a little differently. I'm going to go to those slower moving planets and get a little bit of deeper energies going on, and then we'll move into that new moon and those faster moving inner planets. We spoke last podcast about the fact that this year, calendar year, the latter part of 25, early part of 26, Saturn is going to be making 3 waxing sextiles to Uranus. They had the middle of those 3. August 11th, Saturn retrograde 1 degree Aries, Uranus fresh in Gemini at 1 degree. And, we've got these outer planets making waxing sextiles and trines to each other. And they're in the fire and air signs. And as we have spoken before, both fire and air. Fire is spirit, the energy behind the manifestation of anything. Air is mental, whether it's speaking or talking or Uranus and Gemini, all the technology. But fire and air signs are both that active polarity. That means energy moving out from the center, energy moving outward, energy wanting to just explore and do and expand and go. And so having these outer planets in fire and air signs stirs things up. It makes time appear to speed up. It makes it appear as though things are happening faster and faster. It can be confusing because there's this detail and that detail, and I thought I already did this, and why do I have to do it again? It can almost have a little bit of a retrograde flavor because the energy gets so active. It's how do we keep track of it all? How do we make sense of it all? How do we slow down and breathe through it? And so Saturn in Aries, even though it's retrograde, making these waxing sextiles to Uranus. I've been saying waxing, waning sextiles to Uranus. Sorry, they're the waning sextile. Everything else is waxing in the outer planets. But they're the waning sextiles, and this is last quarter phase for Saturn to Uranus, and so it becomes a little bit of what's working, what's no longer working. And so we can recognize that there's a lot of structural things, Saturn. There's a lot of information, Uranus. There's a lot of technology, Uranus. There are things that are just not quite working as well as we would like them to. There can literally be major cultural and societal norms and customs and laws and rules that are kind of like breaking down with Saturn to Uranus. Saturn kind of wants to hold on to yesterday, and Uranus and Gemini is going, are you kidding? We're moving forward with or without you. You know, and so we have countries that are recognizing what no longer works and how it has to change. For instance, take the whole changing climate, as somebody told me is a more proper word to say, blah, blah, Uranus and Gemini. And moving forward with these innovations, and then there are those with Saturn in that last quarter sextile to Uranus that are going, oh no, we're going back to fossil fuels, climate change is a hoax, and all that kind of stuff. Comparison. For some reason, I've been reading up on solar energy lately, and in many places in Europe and Australia, if you want to have a balcony solar outside your window in your apartment complex, there are countries where you can put in an application and you can have a solar panel installed in 3 days. We are doing the opposite here in the United States. We've got that Saturn clinging to yesterday. We have all kinds of, you know, basically on a local level, rules and norms that don't let us do anything very fast. And then we have an administration that's trying to shut it down altogether, which they're not going to be able to do, but they're really going to set us backwards compared to the rest of the world. So there's just an example with Saturn and Uranus. Again, the second of 3 waning sextiles, last quarter sextiles, was August 11th. We're going to feel that energy, you know, all along through the next year. We'll feel it until they have their next conjunction, which I want to say is in 2032, late Gemini. Stay tuned for more on that. However, we then also have Jupiter making 1 waxing semi-square to Uranus just after the new moon. Same day, August 23rd. Jupiter's hanging out at 16.5 Pisces. Uranus is 1.5 Gemini. They had their conjunction, if you remember, back in April of 24, a little over a year ago. They had a, Jupiter's, Uranus is about a 12-year cycle together. They had that conjunction spring of April at 22 degrees Taurus. Now Jupiter's made it from new phase. It's moving into crescent phase with Uranus. And that's the key phase for crescent, the key word for crescent phase, to say it that way, is the yin energy moving inward. It is the struggle. All these new beginnings that Jupiter and Uranus have been initiating on a physical earth level, Taurus. How are we intuiting it? How are we moving forward on this rapidly changing planet? And Jupiter in Cancer can have us a little, I need my security. Yeah, I can intuit these things, but they make me feel uncomfortable, so I might ignore them a little bit. And so these 2 planets are going to go back and forth between where's my emotional security and am I keeping up with the changes. This is the only aspect I'm talking about that's not in fire and air. But again, as Jupiter makes this waxing semi-square to Uranus going into crescent phase for a couple of years, stay tuned here on that one, it's like, well, where is my inner security and how well does it let me move forward and make whatever changes I need to make in my world to keep up with everything? The other one we got going on is at the end of the month, August 28th, Uranus in Gemini, 1.5 degrees, will make the first of 5 waxing sextiles to Neptune retrograde at 1.5 degrees Aries. There's that waxing sextile again, 60 degrees. Jeffrey Green's teachings would always say sextiles, waxing sextiles are choice points. And decisions that we make at these choice points can turn into rewards at that waxing trine. It can turn into things that we have to adjust when we get to the oppositions. Choices made at waxing sextiles follow the two planets around the rest of their cycle. Let me take you back for a second. Uranus and Neptune had 3 conjunctions in 1993, 92, 93. Those conjunctions happened between 18 and 20 degrees Capricorn. I call those conjunctions the technological revolution. I've spoken about this before. Look at how the technology manifested in that physical world as Capricorn. It can create some tech billionaires. The manifestations of technology, Capricorn, Uranus-Neptune conjunction, look at how that is changing your world since 1993. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers, and now look at everything. Now we have our cell phone as a watch, and everything else as a watch. Things that our big old clunky cell phones used to do, our little tiny watch now does. So, as we move into these Uranus waxing sextiles to Neptune, I'm going off memory here. Out of these 5 waxing sextiles, let's see if I have this sheet handy for myself. It may not. I'm going to go on a little bit of memory here. I'm thinking, I found it. And yes, that's correct. 4 of these 5 waxing sextiles will be Gemini Aries. One of them, the second one out of 5, later this year, will be both of them retrograde back into Uranus, Taurus, Neptune, Pisces. But these 5 waxing sextiles of Uranus to Neptune in fire and air signs is another one of those explosions. I always say with Uranus and Neptune, does technology serve spirituality? Can spirituality monitor technology? Stay tuned. We'll find out. Neptune can get into blindly believing something, and then all the facts have to fit into that picture. And so these waxing sextiles and trines that we have going on in fire and air, it can take us down a rabbit hole of blind lies and, some stupidity, if not a lot of stupidity. We can see that going on. You can have those time periods where you're going, what? They can't see the truth in this picture? We will also have an explosion of facts and information come out that can evolve our beliefs and how we make peace with that material technological world in the middle of it. Uranus sextile Neptune, fire in the air, we could talk about this for hours. How do you calm yourself down with all the energy going on? How do you get yourself in nature, I would say, from my perspective? Thank you very much for listening. And then how does that allow you to sort through the Uranus and Gemini chaos, make sense of it all, and move forward on a very step-by-step level? We will not have the Uranus waxing trines to Pluto. There will be 5 of those, 26 through 28, We will not have those until next year. However, as I'm saying right now on these podcasts, at this new moon of Virgo on August 23rd, Uranus will be half a degree from making a trine to Pluto. They're very, very, very close. And so the orb of influence with those trines comes into the year 2025. Pluto retrograde 1-2 degrees Aquarius, Uranus a sign, Uranus in Gemini waxing trines, 2 air signs. Whew, stay tuned. This is the biggest base note that we're probably following that I speak to in our podcast. That is just saying, how do you move with the times? How do you keep track of the information? How do you pace yourself? Well, let's start looking at these inner planets and see how this helps us out a bit. This new moon on August 23rd is at 0.5 degrees Virgo. Sun goes into Virgo August 22nd, right as we're recording this. My EA mantra for Virgo is, I discern with intuitive wholeness. I discern Virgo with intuitive wholeness, polarity Pisces. Anytime these inner planets ingress into a sign, and they'll move through a sign in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a month, Sun. Anytime the inner planets move into a sign, ingress, they activate every single one of these outer planets at 1-2 degrees fire air signs. So this new moon of Virgo makes a yod with Pluto retrograde Aquarius, Neptune retrograde Aries, Saturn retrograde Aries. So we have all of that Virgonian energy of discerning and analyzing and tearing it to pieces and figuring out how it works. And it can be sparking some great stuff with technology and moving things forward in the AI world. But for those of us as humans, okay, the yod can create a bit of frustration. Virgo's Earth. Virgo's like, oh, can I please just simplify all of this chaos in my world? And I would say that the healthy perspective of Virgo is being nurturing and giving to yourself. How do I'm fond of saying this, how do I love myself, warts, farts, and all? How do I see my cup half full instead of half empty? This is the Virgo work of this new moon. And we are going to have some of these inner planets changing signs here in the near future. We're going to have Venus move into Leo August 25th through September 19th. Venus in Leo is going to make an opposition to Pluto August 27th. 2 degrees Leo Venus, 2 degrees retrograde Pluto. What do I really value in my world? What do I value in my relationships? How is my soul, Pluto, really learning to love me, Venus and Leo? And EA would say, not from that attention-getting drama king, drama queen way, but how do I inwardly really love myself? What ahas can Pluto and Aquarius bring to that? Venus and Leo is going to make waxing trines to Saturn and Neptune retrograde early Aries. What intuitive hits are we getting about how we want to initiate changes in our world and initiate change in our relationship? Venus is going to make the waxing sextile to Uranus in Gemini. What are the communications going on in all of my relationships? You start to get the picture? You can kind of figure this out for yourself if you are in process of studying astrology. If not, I will just say, when planets enter a new sign, and they're in those first few degrees, just expect excitement, chaos, and change. How do I make sense of it? You can look up on a computer, when do they ingress new signs? Mercury is following the sun. Mercury is going to go into Virgo September 2nd. It's going to make the yawn to Pluto retrograde Aquarius, Saturn, Neptune retrograde Aries. More of Mercury rules Virgo. So we've kind of got a couple of weeks here with this new moon, and then with Mercury going into Virgo, where we really do process everything in our world and try to make sense of it and try to find those foundations, Virgo, Earth, through all the fire and air. Having the communications, clarifying those communications as best as we can. When those planets go into Virgo, they're going to make waxing squares to Uranus and Gemini. Sun square Uranus the day after the new moon at 1.5 degrees Sun Virgo, Uranus Gemini. Mercury's going to follow after it goes into Virgo September 3rd, squaring Uranus, 1.5 Virgo to 1.5 Gemini. There's the possibility for insights, waxing squares. Oh, this is what I've been trying to figure out. Mercury rules Gemini as well as Virgo. Two signs it rules. Sun waxing square, moon waxing square Uranus on this new moon that we're going to have August 23rd. Then Mercury. Oh, how do I, again, make sense of everything going on? What are the ahas? What are the highlights? Maybe we get a phone call. Maybe we get an email. Maybe somebody has a conversation with us and boom, light bulbs go off. Waxing squares. Squares are not always bad. The waxing squares are crises in action. Oh, this is how I'm going to be moving forward with my world. Okay, that was a lot of rambling on my part. One more thing. Two more things, okay? September 1st, Saturn retrograde is going to go back into Pisces and finish up 2.5 years in Pisces. It's going to retrograde back into Pisces and go direct and be in Pisces for 5 months. Saturn retrograding back into Pisces. This, on an inner level, asks us to really make peace with our world. On a consensus level, it can have us going back to yesterday. Going back to the 1950s, as this administration has been commented upon by others. It's Saturn retrograde, turning inward. What in our reality isn't working? How do we change the inner dynamics within ourselves to change the outer manifestations in the world? Saturn retrograding back into Pisces, how do I have my deepest connections with source energy that I can possibly have, and then walk them, talk them in my manifested world Saturn? We'll be tasked with that over the next 5 months before Saturn goes into Aries, February 13th, and starts a brand new 28, 29-year cycle of manifestations. Just before the full moon of Pisces, which is going to be a lunar eclipse, it will take place September 7th at 15.5 degrees, Sun Virgo, Moon Pisces. The day or 2 days before that, September 5th, Uranus is slowing down. at 1.5 Gemini. It's going to go retrograde at 1.5 degrees Gemini. Uranus is barely moving as we speak, slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. What information Gemini is going to bust out onto the scene, Uranus, as it turns stationary retrograde? It's going to point towards Sagittarius. It's going to ask us to really intuit what is truth, to show me the truth, show me the truth. What is the broadest level of truth I can accept and understand? Not everybody's going to want to do that. Sometimes information, Uranus retrograde in Gemini, is going to come out and it's just going to blow things to pieces, shake up the scene. Stay tuned. Uranus is going to go retrograde again September 5th, 1.5 degrees Gemini. 5-month retrograde cycle, back into Taurus one more time, finishing up 7 years in Taurus. It will go stationary direct February 3rd, 26, 27.5 degrees Taurus. So it's going to go back into Taurus for 2.5 degrees. What more climate events will we have? What more Earth events will we have? What more financial Taurus upsets will Uranus create in its last passage through Taurus for the next 84 years? Well, minus 7, which means for the next 70 years before, 70-some years before it goes into Taurus again. You know, that 5 months, September to February, that Uranus is retrograde and then goes back into Taurus, we can see the inflation. We can see the tariffs coming up. We can see manifestations, Taurus, with the chaos that can be arising from choices that are being made on a governmental level in the United States and how that interacts with other countries. Stay tuned. We'll all live through it. We'll all find our ways to create new inner peace and inner foundations of connecting with Source and allow us to move through these changing times as peacefully as possible, as inwardly secure as possible through any and all chaos of the fire and air signs. Ooh, okay, Media Monk.
It's like we put all these pieces in the big colander in the salad. We rinsed them off, and now we're going to throw them up in the air again. Try to see what lands back in the salad bowl.
Oh, that's a fun analogy.
Oh yeah, it's just what I've been thinking about. You know, with doctors and doctoring. But anyway, thank you so much, Starlady, for the research, and thanks everybody out there for tuning in to Starlady Soul Reader Network. We'll see you next full moon on our next broadcast. So tune in and move with joy and passion on this always exciting journey to the core of our souls together. Thanks for tuning in, and au revoir.